How's everybody doing this beautiful day here in Cincinnati as the rains continue? I mean, I think I saw Noah out there building the ark. I don't know. I saw animals lining up two by two. It's not a good sign. It's going to be one of those crazy days here in Cincinnati in terms of precipitation. But we're in our gorgeous studios here at First Star Logistics doing a live stream with you folks. First live stream since the Super Bowl. So I'm sure everybody's got a lot to say, some questions, some comments, and whatever the case may be. I will say, though, to start it off, that obviously a very bitterly disappointing end. It was there, it was within reach, just could not grab and hold on. And but boy, what a run, what a ride it was. And how about the playoffs this year in general? Every single playoff game was less than a score, a lot of overtimes including the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl very easily could have gone overtime and, decided by 3 points. So I know the National Football League must be thrilled at the excitement level and the interest level that the playoffs provided this year. And the Bengals were right in the thick of it. Every single playoff game was determined by basically a play. If any play had gone differently during the course of any of the four games, including the Super Bowl, could have been a different outcome. And that's what the NFL wants. The NFL wants that kind of competition, that kind of excitement, and man, made a lot of fans. I think this year the NFL did, as well as the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow in particular. He is a man. Joe Burrow's name is everywhere. Let's get right into the thoughts, comments, questions, any and all. Dave, what do we got, sir?
Well, turn this microphone on. We'll go back. B, still haven't been able to rewatch the game. You know that feeling, Dave.
I haven't watched the whole game either. I've not rewatched the entire football game. I have not watched Super Bowl 16 in its entirety. I've not watched Super Bowl 23 in its entirety. Played in Super Bowl 16, broadcast in Super Bowl 23, and have not watched this football game in its entirety yet either. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough to do, but at some point, I guess I will. I'm sure I will. I don't know when that point will be, though.
Dan the man, losing LVI stung, but man, that was fun.
It was a lot of fun. What a run. I mean, just a great season by a lot of people. It's the first time. Talk about a turnaround. This is the greatest turnaround in NFL history. Cincinnati Bengals in 2000, 2 years ago, go 2-14. Then go 4-11-1, 6-25-1 over a 2-year span, and go to the Super Bowl the following season. Nobody has had a turnaround like that in the history of the National Football League. That's why I think the Bengals captured the country and the world as the underdog. And everybody roots for the underdog, or a lot of people root for the underdog. I shouldn't say everybody. And I think the Bengals picked up a lot of momentum and a lot of fans along the way. And it's the first time that a Super Bowl participant played in the football game without appearing on Sunday night or Monday Night Football. Those are the two times where they showcase what they feel to be the best teams in the National Football League, air quotes. And the Bengals weren't there. And even down the stretch, when there were open opportunities to schedule, bump one matchup in favor of another, they didn't get that kind of consideration. So here they are in the playoffs, making a big run all the way to the Super Bowl. I'll tell you what, next year, there'll be probably 2 Monday nights, 2 Sunday nights, and a Thursday night. Wouldn't shock me at all if the Bengals have 5 nationally televised games. Everybody has to have a Thursday night game in a rotation. So I'm not sure if the Bengals on that rotation have one next year or not, but they're going to have their share of Sunday, Monday, and Thursday.
We kind of talked about this, but before we went on air, free agency and things like that and trades and all that, it looks like someone wants to get rid of Kevin Huber and find a new punter.
Well, the other thing about Kevin Huber, you said it'd be cool to have him with McPherson. Kevin Huber is an unbelievable holder. And McPherson doesn't even think about the snap and the hold with Clark Harris and Kevin Huber. And both of those guys are unrestricted free agents. They're on the list. Riley Reif, Larry Ogunjobi, Josh Tupou, Hargraves, how about the silly mistake he made running on the football field, not even active for the game, getting penalized, moving the Bengals back to the 10-yard line in their 2-minute drill. Kevin Huber is a free agent. Brandon Allen, backup quarterback. Jesse Bates, Clark Harris. Those are the two guys in the operation with Evan McPherson. Eli Apple. Evans is a free agent. Quentin Spain, Michael Thomas, B.J. Hill, Jalen Davis, Trey Flowers, Darius Phillips, Big Fred Johnson, Auden Tate. They have their share, but two members of that operation, Clark Harris, Kevin Huber the punter, as well as the holder, free agents. And that's why the Bengals are, first and foremost, they have to decide which of these unrestricted free agents they're going to make an offer to bring them back, and then go out into free agency and attack other opportunities with players from other teams. Exclusive rights free agents. These are players with less than 3 accrued seasons. If you're an unrestricted free agent, you have 4 or more accrued years. If you're an exclusive rights free agent, less than 3 accrued years. Trenton Irwin, Clay Johnston, Mitch Wilcox, Wyatt Ray. Those are the 4 guys in that category. And then restricted free agent, 3 accrued years on this barrelhead, Stanley Morgan. So they've got a few guys that they need to evaluate, and these are offense, defense, and special teams performers, obviously, that are big factors to the football team. So you're going to have to, every year, it's going to have a new composition to it. Going to be new players, new coaches. Obviously, the Bengals have a new linebacker coach and a new cornerback coach. And so it's going to have different makeup to it. And it's just the beginning with the 2 new coaches. Now there's going to be a lot of player turnover. How much to be determined.
Dolores Cole, what's up with Bates?
Yeah, Jesse Bates, if they can't come to an agreement, they can franchise tag Jesse Bates, and he gets the average of the top 5 salaries at the safety position. So Jesse Bates will be a Bengal next year, but will he be a Bengal long-term, or will he be a Bengal with a franchise tag? So that's what's going to be going on there, and I'm sure that Jesse Bates' people and the Bengals are going to be starting discussions and negotiations. They couldn't quite get it done before the season started, put it away, and decided to pick it back up at the conclusion of the season, in the off season. And I think it's March 16th. I think they can start again on those discussions, something like that. I know there's different days where you can talk to free agents from other teams, your own free agents. There's different dates. I shouldn't name March 16th because I'm not positive about that date, but that date hits me for some reason. It's a date for something, but there's a bunch of different dates for that, those type of things.
Let's stay on the thought here of free agency, Dave. I think they think this close to 7 thinks this is the most important free agency in the history of the Bengals. They have some important guys that need new contracts, and obviously we need some O-line help. Any guys you like in particular?
Well, I mean, I'll give you a list of free agents here that are available. But some of them are going to be extremely expensive. Brandon Scherf from the Washington, 6'5", 315-pounder, 29 years old, didn't give up a sack last year and only committed 6 penalties. But he's going to be $15 to $20 million a year guy. There's no question about it. Probably $18 to $20 million a year guy. 3-year deal. You're looking about spending $50 to $60 million bucks, for him on a 3-year contract. Armstead from the Saints, offensive tackle. Scherf's a guard. Tackle is Armstead, 6'5", 305, 30 years old, only allowed 1 sack, only committed 3 penalties. He's in that price range as well. Scherf's the best guard. Armstead's the best tackle. Dwayne Brown from the Seattle Seahawks, 6'4", 320-pounder. He gave up 8 sacks, only committed a couple of penalties. You can probably get him on a 1-year contract, $9 or $10 million. So I mean, he's probably, he's in the top 5, I think, in terms of interest for people. Ryan Jensen, the center from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is probably the best center in free agency. 6'4", 320-pounder. He's 30 years old. Gave up 1 sack, was penalized 4 times last year, but he's going to be a 3-year deal for probably $8 to $10 million a year, maybe 8 to 12 kind of range. Maybe it's a 3-year deal for $30 million or somewhere 25 to 35 million. I'm picking 30 is right in the middle of it. So, he's got some expense to him. Those are the center and a couple of tackles and a guard. Orlando Zeus Brown is available, the Kansas City Chiefs, but he's gonna be looking for a multi-year deal, probably like a 5-year deal, probably 15 to 20 million a year kind of scenario. Tomlinson, the guard from the 49ers, didn't give up a sack all year long, 5 penalties. You're looking at $8 to $10 million a year with Tomlinson as well. And the key is how many years, how much money for those total years. And then if it's a multi-year deal, you can average it, for your salary cap. The Bengals, I don't know, I've heard as much as 55 million. I've heard 48 million. Say it's 50 million. Say they have $50 million in cap space. Well, a contract like that would take a good chunk of it, not all of it. I mean, it's prorated over the life of the contract. So you sign a player to a 1-year deal for $8 to $10 million, say, let's go right in the middle, $9 million. That comes right off of that 50 million piece of pie. That's a big piece of the pie right there, for a player. So that's how it works. Morgan Moses, another tackle, is out there. Eric Fisher, Charles Leno. There are quite a few tackles out there. Jonah Williams, the guard for the Cowboys, is available. 6'5", 320 pounder. He's only 24 years old. This guy had 13 penalties last year. Dallas Cowboys, the most penalized team in the NFL. Jonah Williams committed 13 penalties. Still probably command, I don't know, $8 to $10 million. That's the price that's the price for free agency. So I do think that all you have to do is look back to the Kansas City Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes was running around like a chicken with his head cut off. His offensive line couldn't protect him. He was retreating, serpentining backwards, and getting hit and getting sacked for big yards. They said, we're going to redo the offensive line. They signed 2 in free agency. They signed a tackle and a guard, Tooney, and they signed Orlando Zeus Brown, and they drafted 2. Big Humphrey, the Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma. They drafted a center and a guard. So they redid their line through free agency and the draft, 2 apiece. 2 offensive linemen in free agency, 2 offensive linemen drafted. And they put the bat on the ball on all of them and really improved their offensive line. But Cincinnati Bengals still beat them in Kansas City in the AFC Championship game with the offensive line that's being highly criticized. And they spent a lot of money on the offensive line that they retooled and rebuilt. And they still didn't make it to the Super Bowl. So there are no guarantees in this business. And the other thing is you have to, as a former lineman, there are some guys that let's look at the linebacker position for a second. From year 1 to year 2, the improvement that Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt was year 2 to year 3, but early in their careers, Marcus Bailey, these guys all made major improvements. Davis Gaither got hurt, but again, these guys all from year 1 to year 2 or year 2 to year 3 made major jumps. You don't give up on guys. You still continue to try to develop guys, and they may be totally different players from one year to the next. And the graph, the arc of their career is on a steady incline. That's what the perfect case scenario that you look for if you draft a guy and he plays for you and you develop him and he continues to play and plays at a higher and higher level. What about Deontay Smith, Jackson Carman, and Trey Hill? They have 3 young guys right there. They drafted in the 2nd, 4th, and 6th round in the draft last year. They were all rookies. One of them or more is going to advance dramatically from year 1 to year 2. I remember as a rookie, really, literally, you don't know what you don't know. And then all of a sudden you come back for the 2nd year, you get another training camp under your belt. And now, boy, I'm starting to figure this out a little bit. End up starting in my 2nd year with the Bengals. Don't give up on a guy after 1 year, after his rookie year. You don't really know what you have yet with some of these young offensive linemen. Am I saying they're the answer? I'm not saying that. I don't know. At this point, I don't know. I don't know what you're looking at in terms of the arc and the evolution of their career. But those guys are going to compete and bring in 2 free agents, draft 2 more. Best man win. I mean, throw as many chances in the pool as you possibly can, and come out with the 5 best guys. Maybe you're going to have to. Maybe Adeniji is a better tackle than he is a guard. He may not have enough lead in his butt to play guard with these big behemoths that are inside at the defensive tackle position. Maybe he's very athletic. Maybe he's more adept at handling the speed, athletic rushers on the outside. Maybe he's a better tackle than he is a guard. They had guard issues, and Jackson Carman wasn't ready as a rookie. Will he be ready as a second-year player? It's up to Jackson Carman. It's up to Jackson Carman. It's up to not only the coach to develop him, it's up to the player to allow himself to be developed. And that's a big, big key. So they've got bodies, and they're going to add to those bodies, and you have to dramatically improve the offensive line. And obviously, the model is there. The Kansas City Chiefs lost the Super Bowl because their offensive line wasn't up to protecting Patrick Mahomes, and they redid it. There's your model right there. It's that simple. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to overcomplicate anything. The Bengals should take that same type of approach and see what happens, because they've got a quarterback in Joe Burrow that can win any football game that they play in. He believes it, and they believe it.
We're going to kind of double dip here. We'll put that up at B, basically asking if going after Tunzel, thoughts, what would be the right price? And Cogshaw 1, also kind of the same thing. What do you think of the Tunzel rumors? And is it better to go the free agency and then draft lineman help versus the trade route?
Yeah, I mean, the trade route is a tough thing to accomplish. Both, you have to have not only a team with a desire, but you have to have a team that can fulfill that desire, and you have to have something that they need as well. That's why the B.J. Hill for Billy Price thing was such a good scenario for the Bengals. The Giants had an O-line need, particularly in the interior, and they thought Billy Price could help them. The Bengals thought B.J. Hill could help them on the inside in their defensive line. Perfect scenario for a trade. That's the kind of thing you have to find. They're not so easy to find. Just because you might want to make a trade, finding the trade partner and having those components fall into place perfectly isn't an everyday occurrence. You don't see a lot of trades in the National Football League, for that very reason. Tunsil, I mean, there's two philosophies. You go all in on one guy, spend $40 million on the guy, or you spend $20 million on two guys that aren't really the guy, but they're pretty good guys. And you get your bang for the buck. Plus the fact that if the guy busts, you got nothing. If you get two guys that can play, one shows he can really play, and the other one, you've got basically you're increasing your odds of making a hit. So it's just a numbers game. That's why sign as many guys as you possibly can in free agency and draft as many as you can to add to the pot in the mix at the offensive line in preseason camps, training camp, and may the best man win. I mean, in my opinion, every position, honestly, if you're a professional football player, it is a very competitive business. I went to training camp every year thinking that I don't have a job. I got to prove myself and fight for that job. Anytime you start to think in your mind, in my opinion, yeah, I'm going to be the left tackle. I'm going to be whatever. Anthony Munoz would be an exception, a Max Montoya, but those guys, they didn't have that mindset. Those guys went to win their job every single year at training camp. And that's what you have to do. Everybody has to go win their job again. So all 5 offensive line positions are going to be open. You got to go win your job again. That's the beauty of the National Football League.
Who they won? Dave, are you related to Trump?
No relation to Donald Trump, no. Although I did play for him for 2 years with the New Jersey Generals, and he was the owner of the New Jersey Generals, and a good owner at that. He gave us every asset that was necessary to be competitive. He was not going to cut any corners in that regard. So Donald Trump put together a pretty good football team. He was not shy about going to the National Football League and getting, quote, free agents from the National Football League, utilizing the draft, trades, whatever means he needed to utilize to put together a team. Donald Trump was ready to do it.
Disco Potato. There's a name for you.
I have a vision there.
Basically, he's asking, what's the latest?
Osai, yeah.
Yeah.
Joseph Osai. Yeah, I mean, he had the, season-ending surgery. He is, in my mind, there are three areas where the Bengals are going to need to address in free agency and the draft and trade if possible. Offensive line, you don't have to be a football Einstein to figure that one out. They need to address the offensive line. Cornerback, you don't have to be a football Einstein to figure that one out either. They need to get another cover corner. You can never have enough corners in today's National Football League. And an edge rusher, if they can upgrade edge rusher. Osai is a guy that's going to be available to them next year, hopefully. Come back totally 100%, at least where he was, maybe even better than where he was. Because, he's got potential. This kid out of Texas is an edge rush guy. And I would, I'd expend a draft choice on an edge rush guy if that guy slides. You can never have enough good pass rushers that can affect the quarterback and get him off his spot and hurry his reads and do all those things, make him uncomfortable, make the quarterback uncomfortable is key in today's National Football League. So you need good edge guys and you need guys in the back end. So, and offensive line. Those are the three areas that I would definitely address. The Bengals have 8 draft choices right now. Wouldn't shock me if they trade down from the 31st pick, trade down a few spots if somebody is willing to offer them an additional second and third round pick to trade back 7 spots into the early second round from the 31st pick in the first round and pick up an additional second or third or both. Heck, do that in a heartbeat. I do that in a heartbeat because, the more football players that you can bring in that are high quality players, and you can get a high quality player in the top 70 players in the National Football League draft. I mean, you go for it. Go for it. And I wouldn't shy away from that if it were to evolve that way. Trades on draft day don't happen all the time either. Just because you want to trade back doesn't mean that somebody wants to trade up. There has to be a partner. It has to be the perfect storm, the perfect situation. But I would examine everything. And I'd try to accumulate as many draft picks as I could. They have 8. They have their own 7 draft picks. And they picked up an extra 7th on that Billy Price trade that I was talking about earlier. Billy Price, B.J. Hill. The Bengals also get the 7th round draft pick on top of B.J. Hill, the 7th round pick of the New York Giants. So it's the gift that keeps on giving, I guess, up until this year's draft.
So Dave, you see more of a chance of possibly trading back as compared to trading up.
Yep.
A lot of fans always want to see, hey, trade up. And I was looking at, just looking at the draft list of teams, because it looks like the Eagles have multiple first round picks. You would think, okay, there's a team we may be able to talk to about trading up, but you feel it's probably more of a trade back.
I think so. I think with the needs that they have, unless there's always a possibility, but I think in the situation they're in, I wouldn't necessarily give up a lot of draft picks because they have more than one need. I'd try to accumulate extra draft picks. I wouldn't trade back too far, but trading up, boy, there would have to be a major, if you're trading up for a tackle, there has to be, say you're trading up for the 3rd offensive tackle coming off the board. There has to be a fall off the cliff to the 4th and 5th offensive tackle for me to trade that capital up to get that guy. Because if you could trade back and still get, whatever offensive lineman it is, it seems like it's a decent draft for offensive line. And I don't think I'd necessarily trade up to get a guy. Look at all the first round draft picks that were, oh boy, Cedric Ogbuehi. Oh, this guy. Oh man, coming out of Texas A&M, very good athlete. Didn't happen. I would not trade up for one offensive lineman. I'm of the mindset that double down. If you can get 2, if you move back and you have an extra second or an early third with that 2nd and 3rd round pick, maybe you go offensive line twice, double down, and increase your odds of finding a guy that can play.
Good question here by Dan the Man. Lap, generally, how long was it after the season ended before you felt you were ready for the next season? And were you ready sooner or later after Super Bowl 16? And that's a great question because this was the longest season in NFL history.
Right.
And usually we're done talking about, the regular season and Super Bowl in January. Here we
Right.
are, almost March.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a grind. It's going to be very tough. You're talking about physically and mentally, because the physical fatigue is one thing, the mental grind is big, and a lot of guys want to decompress. I bet there's a bunch of guys all over the world taking vacation time, including coaches, players, and coaches. They get away from football, leave the country, go someplace where it's where you have a beach and you have some new experience that you can take advantage of. Got plenty of money to do it. I think guys are decompressing right now. There are no two ways about it. Honestly, it was all related to what year you're talking about. My first, second, first through fifth year in the NFL, I was ready to play in 2 weeks. My ninth and 10th year in the NFL, needed a little bit more time than that. We didn't have bye weeks when I played. Bye weeks would have been great to have a bye week where you can just really rest, decompress your mind a little bit and rest your body physically. I think a lot of it is determined by what age are you, and what kind of shape are you in. There are 32-year-old guys that look like they're 23, and there are 32-year-old guys that look like they're 42. So how well have you taken care of yourself? Everybody's body is a little bit different. Some guys respond quicker than others. Some guys recover from surgery quicker than others. Some guys rehab injuries quicker than others. Everybody's metabolism and physiology and everything else is different. So it's different for different guys. And I will tell you that there's no doubt in my mind that the toughest thing I did in my career by far, finished my 10th year in the NFL, and 2 weeks off, I went to training camp for the New Jersey Generals, back-to-back seasons. I was 32 years old. Brutal. I was taking Endocin, which is a horse, an anti-inflammatory. They give racehorses. The trainer for the Generals was giving me Endocin to take because I'd get up at training camp and barely be able to get out of bed because I was so stiff and sore from the NFL season. And then I'm going 2-a-days in the USFL at 32 years old. So that was brutal. So there are different circumstances with everybody's body is different. Everybody's mind's different. So some guys handle things better than others and some guys don't. It's just the nature of the beast.
Andy Woods, let's get back on. I think everyone's going to be talking about offensive line for months. Bengals have not done a good job drafting offensive linemen. They always pick the wrong guy.
I don't know. Always is a long time. They got one that's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
They've had some successes. There's no question, but they have not had great luck here in the recent past. But I'll tell you what, honestly, you can't. In my mind, like I said, 1 to 53 in terms of depth of roster, I'd take the Bengals. In the AFC North, maybe the only team that has a better roster than the Bengals, in my mind, 1 to 53, the Cleveland Browns have a damn good roster depth. They're pretty darn good. That might be the only team I'd take 1 to 53. Now, are there star players with other teams in the AFC North? Heck yeah. But I'm talking the entire composite of the roster. So I think that, overall personnel and the organization has done a decent job, particularly this year. They did a hell of a job every way you can do it. Free agency, 2 years in a row. They spent $125 million 2 years in a row in free agency and redid their defense. They've redone the offense through the draft. And then a trade that we talked about, Billy Price for BJ Hill. So, they've explored every area. They put together a hell of a roster. And I think the Bengals roster, 1 to 53 through the playoffs, was about as deep as anybody's. And I think that's why they won some of the close games they won. There's no doubt.
Could Carmen step up and be the left guard? Pro Football Focus graded him much better in the left side, small sample size, though.
Well, he feels comfortable on the left side. That's what he played at Clemson. He was a left side lineman. And some guys, even though you're right-handed, some guys, once they start playing on the left side, they feel like I'm a left side guy. I can open up to my left. I don't feel as comfortable opening up to my right. It's like not everybody can be a switch hitter in baseball. Not everybody can play on both sides of the line of scrimmage as an offensive lineman in the National Football League. Some guys can, some guys can't. Carmen, I think, does probably look and feel more comfortable on the left side. He's just got more repetition there, and repetition breeds comfort level. So, I think right now that Frank Pollock is going to look at everything and anything to put together the best offensive line that he can. I mean, and like I said, in my mind, all 5 positions are open. Go win one of them. And the thing that you have to do in the National Football League, more so now than ever, is you do have to be able to play more than one position, particularly if you're not a starter. But it's good to have your starters be able to move around too, because if you have an injury on the left side and the backup can only play right side, if the starter on the right side can play on the left side as well, you're making 2 moves for one guy, but really it's that one guy can't handle the other side of the line of scrimmage. Somebody in that group has to be able to play on both sides of the line of scrimmage for depth, because on game day, you're only able to activate 7 or 8 guys, depending on your needs at other positions. So there has to be somebody out of those 8 offensive linemen. If you have a run of injury during the course of a game, you have to have somebody that can line up on the right side and or the left side equally effectively and not be all, flustered over it. So somebody that can play multiple positions on both sides of the line of scrimmage has got some significant value. And that's going to be a factor in who you bring in as an offensive lineman and who you keep as offensive lineman. But if you've got a player out there in free agency that has proven he's a dominant left guard or a dominant left tackle or right, just sign him to play that position. Don't worry about all the other stuff. Let other people worry about the other stuff. If he's a dominant guy at that position, if Anthony Munoz, if he said, I don't really feel comfortable playing right tackle, I'm good. You play left tackle, I'm good. I'm good with you playing left tackle. You don't have to worry about playing anyplace else. Usually tackles can kick into guard easier than guards can kick outside to tackle. It's a little, but in today's NFL, it's a little bit different because the tackles aren't quite as big and powerful. The inside guys now are beasts, man. These defensive tackles are monsters. You have to have athleticism and movement skills to be able to play on that edge.
My question to you, Dave, Super Bowl ends, team comes back to Cincinnati, everyone goes in there cleaning out lockers. Are there meetings with like a Frank Pollock and a Jackson Carman and other offensive linemen? Hey, here's in the meeting they go through basically, here's what you need to do to improve. Here's what you need to be having ready when we come back for mini camp or whatever.
Oh, there's
OTAs and so forth.
Absolutely. There's meetings with every position coach has exit interviews is what we call them. Exit interviews where the player goes in with the coach one-on-one. And the coach is brutally honest. Here's what I think your good attributes are, and here's what you really need to work on. And you know what? If you don't work on them, you're going to have a hard time making this football team next year. I mean, those are the kind of conversations, that have been had. And then offensive and defensive coordinators will maybe kind of meet with their respective units as a group. The individual meetings are handled by, the position coaches, and those can get down and dirty. There's no doubt about it. But you have to appreciate the honesty of the coach. And in my mind, Frank Pollock and a lot of other coaches on that coaching staff will tell it like it is. They ain't going to sugarcoat it. They're not worried about your feelings. They're not worried about if you walk out of there feeling, upset or depressed, or they're going to tell you. And they're doing you a favor by doing that. Honesty is what it's all about because everybody wants to get better.
Killa Miller's question, Mr. Lapham, what would you suggest to current potential linemen to improve conditioning technique or both?
Well, you can always improve on both, Killa. It's like one thing that you have to, like Jackson Carman's a good example. What he has to do is trust the technique that you're being coached. That's where I see his one of his deficiencies is his technique is not repeatable over and over and over. And it's not, he's not using the same techniques. He gets a little bit lax in trusting his technique. And you have to, Anthony Munoz, one of the reasons he was so great, I mean, he was machine-like repetitive in his technique. And he had a big tool belt of techniques and how to, you don't just do one thing all the time, because there are different strengths and weaknesses that your pass rusher might have or your run defender might have that you're trying to block. So you have all these techniques that you can select from in your tool belt, but you always were able to execute those techniques over and over and over again the same way. Not like one way the tape looks like this, the next play it looks totally different, and you're, quote, using the same technique. No, you're not. You're not even close. Your footwork's different. Your hand placement's different. Everything's different. So repetition of that technique, trusting that technique is key. Trust is a big word in all sports, particularly team sports. Trusting coaches trusting players, players trusting teammates, trusting your technique, trusting that the coach gave you the best way to go get a job done. And don't improvise. Don't feel like you've got a better way to do it. If you think you do, talk it over with the coach. Maybe he'll allow you to implement it. But trust your technique first and foremost. And then conditioning, you can't let yourself get sloppy. And in today's NFL, they have almost year-round camps. I mean, really, the conditioning is so different now. I mean, back when I first played in the early 70s, you were on your own. I mean, we had one mini camp in the off season. So everybody had off-season jobs. It wasn't the money being made that there is being made today. I had an off-season job every off-season, whether it was substitute teacher, working in an ad agency, whatever it might be. And then at lunchtime, I'd take a longer lunch, go down to Spinney Field and work out on my own, lift, well, not on my own, but strength coach, but my own time. And then work a longer day, either come in earlier in the morning or stay later at night on my off-season job. So I'd take a longer lunch break, like an hour and a half, 2 hours, to make sure I got everything in the workout that I wanted to get in. It was a different animal back then. But now guys make a ton of money, and you can put yourself, your body is your corporation. You got to treat it that way. It's your biggest asset, and obviously your mental approach, your mind. But you have to take care of your body, and guys work out, religiously. You don't see guys gaining 30 pounds in the off season on a normal basis. Guys stay pretty much in shape year round. And that's a key to having a long career, is not yo-yoing your weight and, working on your strength just during the season and not working to at least maintain it or try to improve it in the off season. Overall body strength, not just bench pressing, but overall body strength. Make sure you're working on your hips, the big muscle groups, so you can have good hip snap and everything else that's related to football. So both of them are important. There's no doubt.
I'm going to skip one here and we'll go back to another one. Class of 7, basically, do you think Carman was bothered by his back most of the season? Does Jonah continue to stay at left tackle, or do you think they would consider a move inside at this point if they added some different pieces by bringing in a dominant left tackle?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Carman's back probably was an issue for him a good part of the season. I know he did lose a ton of weight. He was criticized for coming into camp a little bit heavy, and he lost a ton of weight. I mean, when I saw him Super Bowl week, after the game, walking around in a sweatsuit, I was like, wow, man, he lost a ton of weight. So I don't know if it was an overreaction to that criticism, whatever the case may be. Maybe it was to put less pressure on his back. I don't know. I don't know what the goal was, the objective was, but he was having back issues. He missed, 2 or 3 days, both weeks of practice. So they obviously didn't feel comfortable. So I think the idea was to allow the rotation to continue at guard. He played 51% of the snaps in the Kansas City Chiefs game, the AFC Championship game, and Adeniji played 49%. So I don't think the idea was to eliminate Jackson Carman from playing in the Super Bowl at the guard position. He played some extra point field goal, minimal snaps on special teams. But yeah, it's back must have been an issue. And what was the other part of that question? I can't remember what the
other part was basically about Jonah Williams.
Oh yeah, moving inside.
Yeah,
I think Jonah Williams is a solid left tackle. I think his technique it's repetitive. I mean, he does a pretty good job in that area. I think that moving him inside, I think he's athletic enough. His footwork is good enough to handle the edge rush guys. Inside's a whole new animal, whole new ball game. I don't think it's not like he couldn't, but I think he's a solid left tackle. I mean, I really do. I don't think that necessarily. Oh, like Jonah's been playing at a Pro Bowl level at this stage of his career, but I do think that Jonah Williams is somebody that could hold down that left tackle position.
Well, he's missed quite a bit of time during his career.
He's had some injury, yeah, but that's the interesting thing. Never missed a game, high school, college, whole time in Alabama, and then he comes here and has injury issues. So you just never know. You never know when they're going to crop up. That's one thing that when you're drafting somebody and you go into their history, you can find history on guys all the way back to their high school careers. What has been their injury history, and his was outstanding and playing at a very high level, obviously at a program that's very demanding. Nick Saban's very demanding physically on his football team, and he handled all that very well.
Royal Flush Terry, have you seen any of the draft prospects? DT Winfrey, DT Jones are hidden gems for a D line that had pass rush issues at times.
Yeah, like I said, Royal Flush Terry. I think an edge rush guy. I've not really dived into the college draft at all. I'm trying to work my way through free agency and see what candidates would be there and not be there. I've got time to bone up on the draft. I'm going to be hitting the draft guides that I trust, people that I trust. Everybody puts out a draft guide these days, and familiarize myself with more of the players. But you can never have enough good edge rush guys. There's no question about it. We saw that. Like we talked about Osai. Osai was, first preseason game. It's like, against Tampa Bay. I mean, he dumped Brady, pressured Brady, made Brady uncomfortable, got a sack on him. It's like, Joseph Osai, and then it's over. But he flashed. He showed he's got something. And that was with the number ones. Tom Brady's not in there with scrub offensive linemen. Tom Brady's in there with the first group in the offensive line. Joseph Osai flashed big time. So you got to like what you think he might be able to give you. So there's a guy that was unable to give you much of anything after the first quarter of the first preseason game of the year. So there's an add to your pass rush, outside rush guy right there. And the kid from Kansas State, Hubert, same thing. Wyatt Hubert, drafted in the 7th round. He never got a chance to show what he could do. He had an injury before training camp even started. So they got 2 edge rush guys from last year's draft that they don't even know yet. They don't even know what they can do. So there's 2 bodies added to the mix. If you can get another one in this year's draft, here comes more evaluation process.
A little off topic, Dave. You mentioned the name Tom Brady. Is he retired?
It's a good question. Only Tom Brady knows. I will say that Tom Brady's history shows that he's uber competitive and he keeps himself in unbelievable shape. So there's no doubt in my mind, because everybody that I know, including myself, when you retire, it's like, man, once your body starts to feel pretty good again and you're thinking, yeah, I think I could do this again. I really think I could do this. Very few guys retire and never have any thought about, I wonder if I could play still. It's something that goes through your mind. I think with Tom Brady, I think he's going to have some itches, man. I think he's going to have some desire to maybe think about it. But I think Tom Brady is going to be able to do anything he wants to do and as much as he wants to do. So he's going to be so busy, he probably won't even think about it anymore. His transition, it's not going to be, he's going to be sitting in his family room hoping somebody calls because I think I can play again. That's not going to be Tom Brady. Tom Brady is going to do as many things as Tom Brady wants to do, and he'll probably be able to do them all exceedingly well.
And another piece, that Tom Brady pie, Gronk saying he would love to play with Joe Burrow, the injuries, everything he's suffered over the last several years. Is that a player the Bengals should actually look at to bring in?
No,
In my
I don't
opinion,
think so.
I agree with you. I think
No.
it's past that time.
Yeah, I think that he's just complimenting Joe Burrow like a lot of people are. But I don't think the Bengals should put some of their
Resources
or salary cap resources on Gronk. I really don't. I think that that's another one though. CJ Uzama, he's going to be out there, and is he going to be able to recover totally from that injury? You know, I mean, that injury, obviously no surgery required. He's going to be back. He's not only on the football field a factor for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'd say from a locker room standpoint, he's about as strong a leader as there is in the offensive side of the football. I mean, he is the voice of the locker room. CJ Uzama has got a major presence in the locker room, within the organization, plus the fact that he's a hell of a football player. So yeah, I don't see them muddying those waters with Gronk.
Andrew says he wants to see more Chris Evans next season. Do you feel there's a chance he moves up this offseason?
Well, I think everybody has a role, and I think Chris Evans' role is that he can do two things for him. He can be a third down back in terms of receiving the football. He's worked on his blitz pickup, and he's gotten better and better at blitz pickup execution. Because if you come on the football field as a third down back, and the defense knows the only thing you can do is catch the football, run routes and catch it, they're gonna test you in the blitz. So he's making himself more complete in that regard, and showing that he can handle blitz pickup. But he does run really good routes, and he catches the football. And they've used him as a slot receiver. I mean, they've lined him up in the backfield and motioned him out and put him in the slot, and he's a very, very viable slot receiver. So he's got value. There's no question about it. I think the more touches he gets and the more he produces, the more touches you're going to get. So that's just the nature of the beast. Competition breeds excellence performance. Always has, always will.
Bang Ohio 1, 2, 3, 4. So the Bengals draft a corner in the second or third round.
Yeah, I mean, I draft a corner. If you've done your board and there's a corner, I would not force the issue. I would not force a draft pick on an offensive lineman. If a cornerback you had rated in the top 3 corners was there at the end of the first round for some reason, or early second round, whatever the case may be, if you do trade back, take them. If you have a cornerback on your board that's higher than the offensive lineman or the edge rush guy, the other needs, I would not force, try to put a square peg in a round hole. I would not force it. I would, if a cornerback shows up that you had totally figured that never would have a chance to be there, and there he is on draft day, boom, pull the trigger. But I would spend multiple draft picks on offensive line, just like they did in this past draft. Remember, 2nd, 4th, and 6th round, 3 offensive linemen they drafted. Would not surprise me if they do something like that again. There's no question.
Dan the Man Lap. I've spent more than a year researching Kenny Anderson's Hall of Fame candidacy. Compiling stats comparisons. The case is staggering. Would you mind if I post all in the comments of your Kenny Anderson interview? Go ahead. That's basis for you to use.
That's what it's for. Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Ken Anderson's numbers don't lie. I know you can do anything you want with numbers. You can make you can make a case with numbers, but this guy was as accurate as any quarterback I've ever seen throw a football. And Ken Anderson was a very, very intelligent quarterback. He had a great ability to diagnose and dissect. And I'm telling you, I've told this story before. We used to work the offense-defense camp in Connecticut, and I would, played center some too, so I'd snap to him. We'd work on his drops and all that. And then he'd say, go down about 15 yards and let me start, going through my passing drills that I do. And, man, he would say, ball's coming to your left shoulder, boom, right there. Navel, boom, right there. 20, 25 yards. Same thing. I mean, pinpoint accuracy, pinpoint. This guy, I'd put him up against anybody in the history of the game in terms of throwing a football for accuracy. He was unbelievable.
Terrell Howe, a Lap longtime fan. Do you think we need to draft a QB?
No, I really don't. I don't think we need to draft a quarterback. I think that, I think they're happy with what they've got at the quarterback position. They feel really good about the quarterback room. They do like Brandon Allen. He's shown that he can execute. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't. If some quarterback, again, during draft day, if a quarterback is there, say in the 6th or 7th round or whatever, I certainly wouldn't spend anything more than a 6th or 7th round draft pick on a quarterback. And that's if somebody slid to a point where, I can't believe this guy's there. This really improves that position group immensely. But I wouldn't draft a quarterback, day 2. Certainly wouldn't draft one day 1. I don't think I'd draft one day 2 either.
Kind of a combine here. Royal Flush and Andrew basically both. Once Royal Flush basically says once Uzama is not in the game, the tight end position is a legitimate pass catching threat, is a non-factor. Do you add a free agent tight end or do you draft one? And then Andrew also commented pass catching tight end is deep in the current draft class.
Yeah, I mean it's probably something that you would consider. Again, I wouldn't, not a day 1 or a day 2 choice on a guy. These pass catching tight ends usually can't block their own shadow. So that's the thing. Usually they're big receivers. These pass catching tight ends you're talking about are Auden Tate. They've already got one. Auden Tate literally is the size of these, pass catching tight ends. And he's shown that he can catch the football. And there's a guy that's an unrestricted free agent. And there's a guy that's had some moments where it's like, wow, Auden Tate can catch anything. Now, do I re-sign Auden Tate or do I go in the draft and try to replace that contribution Auden Tate can make with one of these guys you're talking about? But yeah, I mean, is it a priority? No, not a big priority. But again, if you've got 8 draft picks, you're not going to spend all 8 on the offensive line. You're not going to spend all 8. I would say, though, of the 8 draft picks, between offensive line, cornerback, and edge rush guy, I'd expend at least 5 on those 3 positions, at least 5 of the 8. And then you got 3 more that, you can do that type of thing you're talking about with, and whatever you feel improves your team the most based on the draft board. Again, don't reach for somebody and see how it falls to you.
AP says, Dave, how has the draft and free agency changed since you were playing? Thanks, Dave, one of my favorite players of all time. And you didn't have the benefits of free agency.
No, there wasn't any free agency. You basically, my first 2 contracts, you signed a 3-year contract and then say, for example, 3-year contract with an option year. And the option year, you took a pay cut. If you played your option out, you played for 90% of your 3rd-year salary in that contract. You took a pay cut if you played out your option. So nobody played their option out. That wasn't a feasible thing. It was just there basically to be there. Very, very few guys got into their option year. They'd always renegotiate contracts before that. It was almost like an exercise in futility, really, to have an option year. So yeah, the game has changed a ton, and all of it for the better. I can tell you that. From a player standpoint, man, today's NFL is so much more player friendly than back. Player safety was not concentrated on like it is in today's collective bargaining agreements between management council and the Players Association. Obviously, the players have more rights. They're making more money. They have more benefits. It's night and day. Believe me, night and day. Players, when players ask me what I made in my 5th, 6th, and 7th year in the National Football League, they choke. They can't believe it. It's the game has changed light years, and it's all based on television revenue. I mean, the National Football League has grown to a $15 billion+ industry. It's not Fortune 500. We're talking Fortune 50, or maybe even Fortune 5. I don't know. I don't know how many multi-billion-dollar operations there are in this country, but National Football League is powerful. I mean, when you say NFL around the country now, from a recognizable business standpoint, it's what IBM was years ago. Years ago, people would say, "I work for IBM." Oh, you work for IBM? I'm talking about back in the day. Now it's like, yeah, well, I work with the NFL. Oh, you work with the NFL? Powerful, powerful. It has grown into the. Just look at the TV ratings for the Super Bowl. Oh my gosh, it's crazy, crazy. The ratings that the NFL got in the playoffs, culminated by the Super Bowl ratings, were extraordinary. And in the next collective bargaining agreement between the National Football League and the networks, how high can it go? It's going to be crazy because now there's all kinds of other, all kinds of other media opportunities, not just television, radio. There's online, there's all kinds of stuff. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, the money that this league can generate.
All right, you're in the trenches with Dave Lapham from the First Star Logistics Studios. We always want to thank First Star Logistics. Today was even better. We had popcorn and some great stuff here. But we're going to go about 5 more minutes, Dave.
Okay.
Terry Cole, here's the $1 million question. Will the organization actually spend their money in order to capitalize on their window of opportunity?
Well, Terry, they have the last 2 years. Like I said, $125 million average on the last 2. It hasn't been exactly that each year, but it's been over $250 million spent in free agency in the last 2 off seasons. And it really attacked. They get 7 new defensive starters out of it. So they have been spending money. They've been amongst the biggest spenders in free agency. And, the draft is a crapshoot. There's not any team in the NFL that will tell you, I'm going to make the perfect selection every single round. It's all humans. Human beings evaluating other human beings. Can you imagine the wide range margin for error there is when human beings are evaluating other human beings? You just don't know. And you're saying, I'm going to try to take this guy from this system in college and incorporate him into my system. That's why, in my mind, I would never, and I shouldn't say never, but I would really have to, depending on the position, I would have to really evaluate, could this guy fit what we do in the National Football League based on what he's been exposed to in his college career? Because some of these guys, from a pass protection standpoint, with these run and shoot offenses and whatever else goes on in college, they don't even know the first thing about pass protection. But if they've got, at the combine, you see, boy, this guy has athleticism. He's got raw skills. He's got movement. He's got strength. I can work with this guy. That's why there's so many unknowns. So many unknowns. You can't just put rubber stamp on, boom. You can think can't miss. Very rarely are there can't miss prospects. They don't come, they don't come every day. That's for darn sure.
We were talking about this, Dave, even before when we got to the studio today. Yesterday, I spent all day in Indianapolis watching high school prospects at a combine.
Yeah.
On the turf.
Yep.
Body's feeling it today. Hello, Mr. Lapham. Hello, Mr. Dave. Can you please tell Mr. Brown to go back to natural grass and do away with the field turf? Players hate that stuff. What's your thoughts on the turf?
Yeah, well, I mean, turf is tough. They have grass, and they've got grass practice fields, and they do have grass. So I mean, grass is night and day. When you're standing there watching practice on, particularly when it was AstroTurf, I know playing on AstroTurf, literally, it was concrete, a little bit of foam rubber, and the AstroTurf. It was like falling on this tabletop, hard as a rock. Baseball, they wanted a ball to go into the gap into the wall. They wanted that kind of thing to happen, the speed on the field for baseball. Football, it was brutal. There'd be 2 hits. You'd hit, and if somehow you were going to the ground, the contact to the ground was even tougher sometimes than the initial contact with the body you were hitting. I mean, it was a dual force hit. And man, waking up in the morning after games on AstroTurf and that type of turf, tartan turf, AstroTurf, it's tough. Even if you didn't get hurt, injured as such, your ankles, your knees, all your joints, your feet, everything hurt playing on that stuff. Standing on it for long periods of time tightens your back up. I mean, it's tough, man. It is. Football was meant to be played on natural grass, the kind the cows eat. Cows don't eat field turf. They don't eat AstroTurf. I understand why they came up with it. I understand the maintenance factor. I understand season changes. I understand all that stuff. But man, if I'm a player from a career standpoint, my career, I think, would lengthen. I think I'd have a chance for a longer career playing on natural grass than artificial turf. And tell you the truth, back in the day, it was a factor when guys were able to change from one team to another. What kind of a field do they play on? That was a consideration. It wasn't high, but it was a tiebreaker. I have all these other things. Plus, they have a natural grass field. I'm in. I'm there. Oh, they got this. It's AstroTurf. Son of a gun. That other deal doesn't look quite as bad. It was a factor.
Ben Riley, question: why is being a lineman more difficult than other skilled positions? Love the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's an offensive lineman. Your life is to live vicariously through the success of others.
It's a skill position. I keep telling people that.
Well, it is. It is. But it's a mentality as well. You basically have to, particularly in pass protection, it goes against everything every human instinct. Humans don't want to give ground grudgingly and be a punching bag. You don't want to set up and retreat. And, back when I played, they were allowed to head slap you. They'd head slap you right in the ear hole, and your eardrum would almost crack. You hear this ringing, buzzing sound. They could do all kinds of things to you. And you just had to keep your hands like this. You couldn't even use your hands. I mean, you couldn't even hardly counter. You just took these shots. I mean, being an offensive lineman in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, until they started liberalizing rules. I didn't play in the 50s and 60s in pro football, but did play in the 70s in college and pro football. And until they started liberalizing the rules where you could start to use your hands a little bit, it's brutal. It's tough. That's why pass protection didn't throw the ball as much back in the day, because you couldn't keep your quarterback upright. I mean, you had great pass rush guys like Deacon Jones and Jackson, the sheriff from the Denver Broncos, where they'd head slap guys and just come around the horn. You couldn't pass protect them. So you threw it 20, 25 times a game maybe. Now they throw it 50, 55 times, because now as a lineman, you can actually use your hands. You can push them away from you. You can at least attack them a little bit in your pass protection. That's why we wanted to run the ball all the time, because you could come off and attack guys. Man, when you got yourself in a third and long situation and you had to set up and be a punching bag and retreat and give ground grudgingly, man, tough duty. But these guys, I'm telling you, the footwork, the balance, the hip snap, body control, body mechanics, timing. I mean, these guys, you have to have some innate athletic abilities to be able to play the offensive line position. And then mentally, you have to have some mental fortitude, toughness. You have to have different characteristics that the average guy walking the street doesn't have as well in order to survive, because there are going to be times where, you're embarrassed and you have to compartmentalize, get over it, and get right back after it. There's mental toughness and mental dexterity and everything that goes along with it too. It's not an easy job, I can tell you. It's not. But you live vicariously through the success of your skill players. You feel like you had a good game when you have a quarterback throws for 300 yards, or a running back rush for 100, or a receiver catch the ball for 100 or more. That's when you know you did your job. That's what it's all about.
All right. We want to thank everybody for being with us for the past hour. We also want to always thank First Star Logistics providing us with our studio and all the other benefits they give us throughout the course of this continuing growing videocast podcast. Want to make sure we remind you, please hit the like button. Also subscribe. And if you have friends, tell them about what Dave is doing here within the trenches. A lot of great guests since we're Dave, hard to believe we're almost coming up on a year. We started like in April. So in a few months, we'll be a full 1 year into this.
Right around draft time.
Yeah. And we're going to have a lot of stuff coming up in the coming weeks as we get closer to going through free agency and the draft. But please hit the subscribe button. Tell other people about what we're doing here on In the Trenches, and we'll continue to grow the channel. And as always, again, we thank First Star Logistics for everything they do for us. And until next time, I'll let Dave finish out on any final thoughts and comments.
Yeah, I mean, I just, as the draft approaches, again, going to start boning up on that draft pretty severely, and free agency. And I guess next week, it's just to give you a little bit of a tease. Duke Tobin from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's the guy. He's the main man. He's the guy that orchestrates, organizes everything in terms of how they're going to handle free agency, the draft, and everything that goes along with it. He's going to be our guest next week. We got him Wednesday for a videocast podcast. I'm looking forward to it. And we've got so many more. We got some famous big time NFL Cincinnati Bengal NFL alums that we're going to be talking to as well about the Bengal season, the Super Bowl, free agency, the draft, all that good stuff. So even though the season's over, we're not done talking football, guys and gals. So keep coming with those questions, and we appreciate your interest. Without you, we're nothing. We're squadouche. We don't exist. So we appreciate each and every one of you.
Thanks, everybody.
Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.